This may be stupid to even do it in the first place, but welcome to the recap of the Australian Grand Prix. It is almost 3 weeks late, which is why it's potentially stupid to even do this in the first place. But I am doing it anyway, so yeah. It's going to be a quick one because I also need to get through the Chinese GP and do record predictions video for the Japanese Grand Prix, all before practice one begins in just under 4 hours' time. Am I going to be able to record everything in time? Probably not. Will I still try to? Absolutely. Am I stupid? Definitely. So, the first things to go through are obviously the race results. And just give me a sec because I did have OBS on my second screen, which is lower resolution, but I couldn't see everything that I needed to see properly, so I now just have to quickly swap it around. Okie dokie, so that's the wrong window, that one. The race result was as followed. George Russell taking home the win, followed by Kimi Antonelli and Leclerc for the podium. Lewis Hamilton finished in fourth, ahead of Lando and Max Verstappen in sixth. Those were everyone that finished on the lead lap, with Ollie Behrman taking best of the rest in seventh, just ahead of Lindblad, Bortoleto and Pierre Gasly rounding out the points. Ocon, Albon and Lawson finished just outside the point and were the last three on the lapped only once. Colapinto and Sainz in 14th and 15th were lapped twice, with Perez in 16th getting lapped 3 times. And for the non-classified, Lance Stroll did complete the race but was 15 laps down, meaning that he only completed, I should have got this ready, 78% of the race, and you need to complete 90% of the race to be classified. Alonso, Bottas, Hadjar were the other 3 DNFs, with Piastri and Hulkenberg not starting the race. So I'll go quickly through each team, basically just wrapping up their weekend, how many points they got, where they are sat in the constructors. Obviously, I can't. It's a little bit useless doing this after China. I'm sorry, but no, barely anyone watches these videos anyway, and they're gonna have a late tag on them for like a month, and so by that point, no one's gonna care that it's late anyway. And if you're watching any videos of mine, you're watching the most recent one, not this one. So McLaren finished 5th with Lando and non-classified, with Piastri getting 10 points and put themselves 3rd in the constructors. Quite a disappointing weekend from McLaren, I'd say. I was expecting them to be up there fighting with Mercedes, ahead of Ferrari at least, and they just weren't anywhere. As far as I remember, they stopped developing at like Austria, unless they started redeveloping because of the title fight, but I'm pretty sure they didn't. So, weird one for McLaren. As next up, you have Mercedes, who are now obviously the lead guys in the championship, taking a 1-2 home. And why can't you unhide multiple things at once? OBS, that's a bit stupid. You can't hide through right clicking, which is weird. Sorry, anyway. Mercedes, yes, obviously a 1-2 finish, getting themselves 43 points and putting themselves first in the Constructors' Championship, just ahead. I forgot Ferrari finished fourth. Red Bull's next up with 8 points, finishing sixth with Verstappen and non-classified with Hajar. Unfortunate from Hajar. I think he was on for a good weekend, much better than I was expecting. I was expecting the second driver to still be having issues. A second driver was having issues. Max crashing into the wall in qualifying, obviously, due to car issues. But yeah, Red Bull on the back foot, kind of as I expected, but I didn't expect them to be this on the back foot that Max wouldn't be able to do something, which is rare, to be honest. Fourth place for them in the Constructors. Now we move on to my team, Ferrari. Finishing P3 and P4, could have won the race, but bringing home a respectable 27 points and putting themselves second in the Constructors. I will forever maintain the fact that they should have put at least one of their drivers. But Ferrari things doing Ferrari things. At least we're not capable of winning the championship. Otherwise, mistakes like this would be very detrimental to my health. Williams. No points, finishing 12th and 15th with their two drivers and putting themselves 9th in the Constructors. Very, very disappointing from Williams to begin the season. Obviously, overweight. I personally thought they would have fixed these issues, but I guess not. And even if they have brought the weight down, it seems like there's still underlying issues with that team. Will they be able to correct them to challenge for the best of the rest? I don't think so. So there go my prediction points from the beginning of the season. My brother got in worse though because he put both Williams ahead of Lewis Hamilton in championship predictions, which is catastrophic. RB, opposite of catastrophic. Lindblad doing a good job getting 8th to score the team 4 points, putting themselves 6th in the Constructors, and Lawson coming home to finish 13th. Pretty good weekend from Racing Bulls. About where I'd expect them, to be honest, around the middle of the mid-pack. I didn't see how they were going to jump right to the front, especially if Red Bull was struggling. So, yeah, about here is as expected. Maybe if you looked at how bad Red Bull are struggling, you'd probably put RB a little bit further back in the field. So, pretty good job from them. Not a good job from Honda and Aston Martin, though. Both non-classified, obviously, and not even finishing 78% of the Grand Prix. Good on them for getting the amount of laps that they did. It's slowly but surely going to be information that will help them in the future. Whether they will finish a Grand Prix, at least one of them, I hope for their sakes that they do. But we'll see. On to Haas, who scored 7th place with Behrman, getting themselves 6 points, and almost got another points finish with Ocon in 11th, putting themselves 5th place in the Constructors. Very good job from Haas, looking like they're firmly at the front of the midfield, continuing on from where they left off towards the end of last season, obviously with Behrman's 4th place at Mexico. I think he had a good couple of races as well around the American portion of the year, so looking good for the oldest American team on the grid. On to Audi then, and ninth with Bortoletto and a non-classified with Hulkenberg. 2 points for them, putting them seventh in the constructors. Not a bad result for Gabby. Unfortunate for Hulkenberg, of course. Would have been interesting to see what he could have done. But in the end, a non-classified is non-classified. You can't do much about a that. Oscar Piastri will tell you that. And on to last place in last year's constructors, Alpine scoring themselves a point with Gasly in 10th and Colapinto finishing the race in 14th. Not a bad showing from Alpine. A lot better in the race than they were qualifying. Didn't expect them to do well, so this is a pretty good job from Alpine by my expectations. Whether they can get a grip on the Merc power unit a little bit more is yet to be seen, but if they can, could be fighting RB and Haas towards the end of the season in the races. Maybe not so much in the constructors. I think Haas might have that secured, but obviously it's still a little bit close and tight. It's not like Haas or Williams from the beginning of last season where they were just fighting Ferrari. So we'll see how that goes. And then on to F1's newest team, Cadillac. Very good job from Cadillac, obviously not finishing with Bottas, but getting 16th with Perez, and just finishing their first Grand Prix is a good way to start the season, of course. So we'll see what they can do from there and if they can move forward. So now on to the individual drivers. I'm just going to search if there's a shortcut for hiding stuff on OBS. Control 1. Why is it Control 1? That makes no sense. That's not even correct. God damn you. Why can't you hide? Can I add a custom? Settings, hotkeys, haha, hide. Can I, like, why can't I just, like, click on ones and, you have to actually go through each individual one, which I think is stupid, but okay. What if I... Oh, you also have show. Oh well, okay. It's not as good as Blender with its custom shortkeys that it can make. Okie dokie, well, George, very good job from him, taking the first place in the first race of the season. Lights to flag victory, obviously not leading every lap, but still a good job from the Brit. Good fight with Charles, and saying it wasn't a straightforward afternoon, but the win feels sweet. Congratulations to the team. Incredible job and victory for them. Difficult start, chaotic yo-yoing overtakes with Charles. Could have used his energy a little bit more smart to defend when he first overtook him, and that cost him when Charles got him back. Stressful film in the car, but hopefully a good show for the fans. Stopped under VSC, and they knew that they were managing their tyres. Supposedly wasn't clear which one it was going to be quicker, one stop or two stop. Saying it wasn't easy for them. Let's see how they perform in China next week. Don't necessarily agree with that. I don't know if I would have known it at the time, but there have been people since saying that Russell and Russell himself saying that he wasn't pushing for the majority of that race because he didn't need to. So yeah, not a good sign if you want a close season, but a good sign if you want George to win the season, of course. So on to his teammate Kimi Antonelli, finishing second place, saying, "What an afternoon and what a weekend! Not been easy not been easy on his side of the garage. Obviously, crashing an FP3 and getting off the line very slowly. He had a lower battery level, so the start was stressful, slow launch, but the recovery was good and the pace was strong. Enabled him to get closer to the Ferraris, and after the pit stops, get a 1-2 for the team. A lot they've learned about the car and how to operate it, and whilst they were the strongest team, they're going to have to work really hard to stay ahead. He's now looking forward to China and seeing what they can do in Shanghai. Now I know that he wins, so that's fun. This is also why I probably shouldn't do this late, but I am anyway. I don't think Merck need to work as hard as they say they do, but up to them to say what they want to say. And it's up to the other teams to catch them up. Speaking of, on to Charles Leclerc, who finished third in the race, saying that they were quite strong, which is positive given that their expectations from qualifying were not that high. Had a good start and learned a lot on the opening laps. A lot of things to manage at the same time, and deployment, tyres, overtakes, etc. Happy with how he's handled the situation. Just didn't have the pace to hold on to first. They've got to be on it in terms of development and push it to the maximum to reduce the gap. Gained a lot of insight in the weekend, and they will take that with them for China. I don't necessarily agree with Charles saying that they didn't have the pace. On raw quali pace, absolutely. But in the race, as you could see, they were staying with Merck up until those first pit stops. Had Ferrari pitted with them, there would have been at least a chance, I think. Obviously, because why would it be different later in the race that he couldn't stay with them? So, do you think there could have been a chance? Lewis, obviously, well, why is that? Okay, why does Control T not work? Because it's not Control T, it's Control F. Lewis obviously finishing fourth in the first race of the season. Happy with the performance, he says. A lot of learning over the weekend and squeezed everything they could today. Well, 3 weeks ago. Took absolutely all the performance that was on the table. From the first laps, he felt switched on, and throughout the race, understanding more and more. Still lots to learn, and clear that there's work to do, but clear that they're in the fight. They'll stay grounded, precise, and keep pushing to build on it. Interesting that he doesn't mention how he said he should have pit in the race, but I suppose F1 get to pick and choose with their quotes what they put in here, so they're not gonna they're only gonna put like highlights from what they said, I guess. And obviously Lewis won't repeat himself every time, so he'll be saying things differently each time he does the interview, of course. On to Lando and the reigning world champion then, saying P5 is a good result. Think he maximised what they could have achieved. The gaps of guys ahead is pretty big, and they clearly have a lot of work to do, which they thought might be the case. The fact that they could defend against Max to keep him behind, even though he had a lot more pace, was good. They managed strategy well, protected their position, and managed the tyres. They need to understand where they're losing pace, as well as understanding how they can approach the weekend better, but he's got full confidence in the team that they can do that. It's looking like it's going to be a tough season, but they're in a reasonable place to start from, and they'll do the best that they can. Obviously, in the days afterwards, Stella mentioning how he felt hard done by from Mercedes about the power unit. I don't know. I haven't looked into it too much myself. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with it. Obviously, it's cheeky in the sense that Mercedes didn't want a repeat of last year where McLaren beat them, obviously. So we'll just see how it goes for the rest of the season, of course. And it looked obviously like in China that they got a little bit better of a handle on the power unit. Not as much as they'd obviously like, but a better handle is a better handle. On to the sixth place man, Max Verstappen. First lap was pretty hectic, and they needed to stay out of trouble. Have some issues at the start with the battery, and so as soon as the clutch was dropped, he had no power, which is something they need to understand. And they then got cleanly through the field, did some decent overtakes, and learned a bit about what they could do. Settled down into their own race, but unfortunately had a little too much degradation. Tyre behaviour was surprising, and they had a lot of graining on the hard compound, which compromised their stints and meant they couldn't really fight for more. So there's something they need to go back and understand a bit more. They also tried everything at the end to overtake and gain position, but when they got close, tyres opened up and couldn't do anything. Overall, the team did a great job, and it was a decent comeback from P20, and they will work hard as a team to close the gap further. Obviously, we've had China, but if this continues, there is a good chance that Max could be out of F1 at the end of the season. Obviously, he did go and do a Nürburgring race in the week break between China and Japan. Obviously, he did get disqualified from that because of the tyre rule that they have, but that's not going to stop him from doing 24 hours or whatever. So we could go. If Red Bull keep this up, we could see Max leave, which would be a shame because obviously greatest driver on the grid at the moment, and it'd be a shame to lose someone that often brings good racing. Not great racing as in overtakes, more so great racing as in just watching him drive the car, which is unfortunate if he won't be around much longer. But we move on to Oliver Behrman, saying it was a good race, wasn't the best first lap, but after that they had great pace and made some overtakes. So he's happy as it was a strong performance. Special feeling to start the new regs with a good result, and they benefited from a few retirements, but regardless they scored points and they're now going to take every single one of them. Proud of the team, and shows and validates their hard work. I agree. It was very good performance from Behrman. Great battles with Lindblad, of course. Who said that obviously he had a great start on lap 1 and mentions that too. He says he thinks he was P3 or something on lap 1, which is pretty nuts. Definitely showed people that if there's an opportunity, he's going to get stuck in and he's not going to hang about. He had a lot of fun, he enjoyed the weekend, and he thinks there's a few things from the race that he could have done a little bit better, but in general it's been pretty positive, and he's happy with the weekend. He thinks he got the maximum amount of car in every session, so he's looking forward to China. Obviously, nothing but good words for Arvid. I didn't think RB were going to be good this year, and I thought Arvid would pay the price for that, but seems not. So what do I know? I can't predict the championship for anything. But my fantasy team does pretty well, so got to stick to the numbers side of it, I guess. But yeah, pretty good weekend from Lindblad. Fighting Max pretty hard when Max came up behind him as well. So feisty guy on the grid, quite like it myself, and yeah, I think he could be on for a good couple of great results this season. On to then the 9th. Why is Pierre next? Why did Gabby move down? Gabby Bortoletto, P9, finishing their first event as Audi, obviously in the points, and he mentions that in his answer. To finish in the points in writing a piece of history is something the whole team can be proud of. Positive race, car and power unit ran reliably on Gabby's side, which is a great reward for the enormous effort that went into the car over the winter to get everything ready. The race itself was quite busy and at times a bit chaotic, so there's still many things for them to study and understand better, but the pace was strong and the communication was excellent and the team executed the race very well. It's probably more than they could have expected from the first race, and it gives them a good baseline to build from, but they know that there's still many areas in which they can improve. A lot of races ahead of them, and their focus is to continue to learn, develop, and come back even stronger. Obviously, referencing their Hulkenberg's retirement. On to Pierre Gasly, getting the last point in the race, saying it was a really hard-earned point and they can be pleased to achieve. Certainly a long afternoon, had a good start to the line and gained a couple of positions and then quite some interesting battles. Had a bit of damage from some contact, so they probably couldn't show their full potential, but he thinks he had some circumstances come their way, and he says had some circumstances come their way, they would have been fighting even higher up. A lot positive to take, and he's sure that they'll put in the hours to learn all the new things ahead of China. The racing is different, it brought a lot of new challenges, and there are so many tactics and factors that now come into play. Now that they've seen the race unfold, there's so many new tricks for them to understand and implement next time. He enjoyed it. It was busy for the entire race, and there's so much for them to take on. Obviously, in China, they got the sprint weekend, where they'll have to be on it straight away and up to the speed quickly. He will leave Australia happy and well done to the team. On to Esteban, then finishing in 11th. Saying it's been a disappointing race as they should have been in points after a great start where they had gained places. After that, the pace wasn't there and they were struggling a lot with rear instability. It was frustrating as he thinks there was a lot more the car could have done. While they do need to get on top of it, they've still learnt a lot from the weekend, so they'll see how it goes in China. He's pleased for the team that they scored points in Australia, as there's a lot of hard work over the break to get ready for the season. Don't remember much from Esteban's race. to be honest. So I believe I saw that he hit under like the wrong safety car or something, the wrong BSC, so he lost out a bit from that. So um, that won't have helped if that's the case. But I don't think it's anything to be too troubled by from Esteban. On to the first Williams on in the results then. Alex Dan Albon, saying it's a long race for them and currently they're in no man's land. Not really fighting against the midfield, but the strategy was good. It's clear that they are lacking pace, and it's obvious from the lap times that they are overweight and not producing enough downforce. Graining was also a problem. Realistically, they know where they can find lap time, and the team is working tirelessly on an aggressive plan to get them closer to where they want to be. Positive from the race is that they got mileage and they overcame some reliability issues from the previous sessions. But they'll learn as much as they can from the weekend to apply it for China. Obviously, referencing Sainz's couple of non-laps in practice and not able to get a lap in for qualifying as well. Yeah, just I don't know what happened with Williams. Like, they're just nowhere. It's not just it, even if you take into account the weight, it's like everything was put on 2026. Everything. And they're overweight. They're not producing enough downforce. Like it's just shocking, to be honest. Liam Lawson fighting against Perez midway through the race, reigniting that little debacle. And obviously had a poor reaction. Not poor reaction, poor start. Saying that the lights went out very quick and he thought he had nailed his reaction and the procedure, so after review it, as the car didn't move. He lost all power and he couldn't get enough power for another 5 seconds. So he was just left sitting there, so it's pretty frustrating. They had some issues in the race, and every time he got to the back of the car, his energy management wasn't really working properly and he kept losing power. So a bit of a learning curve for all of them today with the cars, but they fought through some issues and he thinks the pace was actually quite okay. Obviously, in the hands of Lindblad, you could see that the pace was okay. 13th from Lawson, probably could have got a little bit higher up. Obviously, with respect to Lindblad, should have beat Lindblad, but we'll see throughout the rest of the season if it's something that Liam needs to be a little bit worried about, or if it's just a like 1 or 2 time thing, obviously. So then on to Franco Colapinto, who had to dodge Liam's slow moving RB at the beginning. He said, based purely on results, it's not where they want to be. However, there's some positives that they can take away from the race data. From when they started on the grid, it was always going to be difficult, and ultimately, the penalty for a start infringement costed him a chance of fighting further at the front. The win and lose as a team, and they're in it together. He was actually lucky to finish the race, as it almost ended at the start with the scary moment trying to avoid Liam, who was very slow off the line. He almost went straight into the back of him and managed to see him and avoid him at the last second. Swerved right and squeezed between him and the pit wall. I think he says he thinks he touched the wall, but thankfully didn't suffer any serious damage and got through the first lap unscathed. Despite the result, he thinks from where they started the weekend, they can be pleased with how the car felt and performed, especially in race trim, which is comparable to some of their midfield rivals. And given a nod to Pierre for getting the point to start the season. My impression from Franco from Australia was much better than last season, of course. Obviously, the Alpine itself didn't help Franco much last year, but it's a promising start for Franco to get back his reputation from the first couple of races that he did in the Williams back in 2024. Speaking of, Carlos Sainz didn't qualify, obviously, due to an issue in FP3 that they couldn't fix, and only managed 15th in the race. Tough weekend with too many issues across every session, he says. Had a great start and managed to climb to P12 in the initial laps. Unfortunately, they had an issue with the front wing, which costed them all the aero balance, and understeer he picked up, which meant he started degrading the tyres massively. From then on, it became a test session, and the front wing issue is not new, and they need to focus on solving those sorts of problems if they want to improve in the short term. They've got homework, but he trusts that they can put together a good plan to make those improvements. Yeah, as I said with Albon, really weird just how Ferrari, Williams just dropped massively. I really didn't think that the midfield was going to change that much. And yet here we are saying Williams are back at the back of the grid. How? But not quite the back, as there was one last finisher, Checo Perez. First races, the team is done. Completing a race is incredible and a real achievement just 1 year after the entry was confirmed. Now it's over and they need to move on to adding performance so that they can really race hard. They're feeling competitive within the team, and that's the attitude that they need to be able to close the gap and aim for something big. Obviously, the first step to that is obviously beating people in qualifying in the race, which they were able to do in China, but that's not for me to talk about now. That's for the qualifying. That's for the Saturday reaction for China. But very good, very not impressed, but proud of Cadillac to getting at least one of them to the finish. Obviously, Bottas retiring, not a massive issue, but hopefully they can fix it and get on to closing in and getting through to Q2 a couple of times. Lance Stroll, as I said, 15 laps down, but technically finished the race, saying it was good to get some kilometers in the car, especially after missing pretty much all track running that weekend. They used the race as a learning session and stopped for several laps to check things in the garage before heading back out. Still quite a bit of missing performance and reliability, but the laps they managed should give them a bit more direction going into China. Yeah, managed a lot more laps compared to what they said they could before the weekend, which is obviously a good thing. But they need obviously to work on it a little bit more to get a little bit more out of it and actually finish a race for later in the season. But even with that, still massive performance issues. You know, both of them out in Alonso out in Q1 and not able to do anything with that green, seemingly wheelie bin. But still ahead of Cadillac, but that's not really much of an achievement, to be honest. Fernando Alonso, pretty much the same as Stroll, but did a little bit less laps and was in the garage for a lot longer. Saying the first 2 laps were the most enjoyable part of the race, had a good start and ended up P10 at one point. They were then out of position, and so they fell back. They brought the car into the garage to check things over and went back out before they had to retire the car. China next week would be another good opportunity to get mileage and optimize things. I wonder how much more Alonso can take as well. Like, saying, but obviously back in Bahrain, that the chef could drive the car. Um, at the time, I did wonder how much of that was just because of Aston not being that good. Obviously, now we know it could be a little bit of that, and obviously with the super clipping and whatever, it's not just the Aston is bad, but we'll see. Teams have always found a way to circumvent how, well, not circumvent. Teams have always found a way to improve and get it to their liking. Just like look at 22 to 25 for dirty air. The regulation change that was supposed to improve dirty air, and it did for about 2 races before there seemingly were no more entertaining races in 2022. Obviously Brazil, but it wasn't overtaking that was entertaining. It was cars doing things that you wouldn't normally expect. And then, yeah, 24 got lucky with multiple drivers winning, and 25 got lucky with McLaren imploding. So teams will always find a way. Just that Aston need to find a way a lot more than most of the other teams. A bit like Cadillac, but that's to be expected. Valtteri Bottas commented saying that they made history as a team, first ever Grand Prix weekend, and they're here racing, and that's a proud moment for everyone. It's a shame that the race was cut short due to a fuel system problem, but they learned a lot. The team did a great job to finish the race with Checo's car, and there's a lot of positives to take from the weekend. It's only the start of the journey, and he enjoyed the progress and can't wait to get to China to try again. So yeah, very good weekend from the Cadillac boys and girls, and can't wait to see where they get to at the end of the season. Hopefully, earlier, but unlikely, seeing as it is. Well, I say it's unlikely, but it's more likely now than it is in a couple of years' time that they make the big improvements. So we'll see. Hajar was on for a good result. Obviously running P5 into the point before he retired. I think, was it P5 or was he still ahead of Antonelli? Either way, could have probably would have finished fifth had he finished. So it would have been a good result for him, and there would have been a good amount of people saying that Hajar has finally fixed the curse. Obviously, they were saying that anyway after qualifying because of the P3 that he got, but they would have been saying it even more. And I kind of think he's going a little bit under the radar, of course, because Red Bull aren't looking that good. Commenting saying that today was frustrating. He was confident that they could challenge for the podium, so the result is a shame. He felt really strong off the line, but unfortunately the issue they had came up straight away. The reliability they had throughout the weekend was good, but of course the race is different, and he could feel that there was a problem quite early on. The car was making a funny sound, and he knew that they weren't going to make it to the end. It's frustrating, but these things can happen, and they're so early on in their journey. They go quickly to China with a short turnaround, but he's confident that they're going to learn from this. Obviously, Red Bull with their Red Bull powertrains, so pretty good job from them to get 3 of the 4 cars to finish. Unlike obviously Honda and um, the likes of them. So yeah, pretty good job to get most of their cars to finish. But I'm sure they'll the reliability stuff will sort itself out towards the end of the season. But obviously, the main thing is that there just isn't that much pace in the car. Would Hadjar have fought for the podium? I don't think so. But obviously, we'll never know because he retired before we could properly find out. I think had Hadjar gone on to the strategy that Merckx did, he probably would have been out around where the Ferraris came out when they hit. So could have been interesting. Could have seen Hadjar get a second podium and the first with the main team, of course. On to Oscar then. Unfortunately, crashing before even making the formation lap. Tried to one up Hadjar. Unfortunately, no one told him that's not a good thing to do that, apparently. That's not a funny joke. I'm sorry. Yeah, Australian driver curse hit hard. Oscar saying disappointed. Today was not how they wanted to start the season. Unfortunately, a combination of factors, including cold tyres and being on the curb, and then more power than he had in qualifying in that corner, meant he spun. They'll review everything that evening and go into the next week with their heads down and ready to keep fighting. Saying thank you to all the fans for their support, and it's been amazing, but he's sad to have not been able to race in front of them. Yeah, it was just really weird. I remember waking up. I think I was tired, so I was like half asleep for the first half hour before I woke up. By which point the pit lane was open, and I don't think I was sat down properly. And then it just cut to Oscar with a broken car. So it's a shame. The Australian driver curse continues. So we'll have to wait another year to see if he can break it. Will he get a podium? We'll see. It's up to McLaren to improve their car. Normally they do, but we'll have to see because it looks like from McLaren side, it looks like it's not just the aero that's bad, it's the powertrain, and they can't get the most out of that because Mercedes won't give them the information, which they're allowed to do. And last but not least, Nico Hulkenberg. DNS as well, almost. I think it would have been easy for most people to miss that he wasn't starting the race because it was very late. But yeah, I feel like the commentary didn't point out exactly, or I just wasn't paying attention because it was 3:30 in the morning. Either one, to be honest. Unfortunately, he says that they didn't get the chance to compete today. They developed a technical problem on the way to the grid, and it was something they couldn't resolve in time for the start. Team is investigating on how to the team is investigating how to understand exactly what happened. It's obviously frustrating to miss out on the race and the opportunity to learn more. That said, it's positive to see the team finish with points through Gabby, which is a great result and a strong way to start the F1 era for Audi. Racing moves quickly, so they reset and go again for next week. So, that is all the drivers' reactions from the weekend. I feel like I talked a little bit more on actual performance in the practice and quality reviews. I guess because, it's late, not only in the day, it's like 20 to midnight, but it's also like 3 weeks late, so I kind of forgotten most of what happens in the race. But it's fine because barely it's like how many people watch in the 3 weeks that they've been up. 25 people watched the practice recap and 20 people watched the qualifying recap. So yeah, like you're not gonna mind if you're watching this. You're not watching for the proper insight. You're just watching because you're bored or you accidentally clicked. So, with one last thing to do, let's go through predictions. Okie dokie, I have to move that onto the other window. Yes, okay. Do you want to work like a normal window, or do you just like what's going on? Are you okay? Hold on. No, okay. This is why I wanted to do it on the other windows because I knew this would be a problem. Right, I have my mouse on this one. There we go. So, I don't need that window anymore. Excel spreadsheet. There we go. There's the predictions. So obviously, did not qualifying, did not race, don't count. So at I missed out Cadillac. Why did Cadillac not show up? Oh well. Cadillac in qualifying, the point went to Perez, which my brother and the RNG did predict, and I didn't. At Alpine, the result was Gasly, which we all predicted. At Audi, the qualifying prediction was Bortoleto, which I predicted. Only I predicted getting the point. At Haas, it was Behrman, for which we all got the point. At obviously, I did this the wrong way round, but it has been fixed for every predictions afterward. But it was Lawson, which we all got the point for. At Aston Martin, maybe Cheaty with obviously Stroll not competing. But yeah, Alonso, we all get the point for that. At Williams, it was Albon, for which all of us but my brother get a point. At Ferrari, it was Leclerc, for which we all get the point. At Red Bull, it was Hadjar, so none of us get the point. At Mercedes, it was Russell, so we all get the point. And it was Piastri at McLaren, so only the RNG does not get the point. For the podium, in third place was Hadjar, for which the weighted random number gets the 2 points. However, I get a point for having Russell in the top 3, and my brother gets a point for having Leclerc in the top 3. For P2, it was Antonelli, for which none of us get the double 2 points, but I don't get a point at all, but my brother gets a point. Oh, no, my brother does not get a point for Leclerc in the previous one. He got the point for Russell in this one. And the weighted random number does not get a point for Norris. And for P1, none of us got any points, as none of our drivers were in the top 3. It was Russell for pole, Piastri finished 5th, Max did not qualify, and Leclerc finished 4th. On to the race, and the winner at Cadillac was Perez. None of us predicted him, so no points. At Alpine, it was Gasly, for which we all get a point. At Audi, it was Bortoletto, so only I don't get a point. At Haas, I forgot the team name, it was Behrman, so only I get the point. At RB, it was Lindblad, so only the RNG gets the point. At Aston Martin, it was Stroll, for which no one gets the point. At Williams, it was Albon, so only my brother gets the point. It was Leclerc at Ferrari, so we all get a point. It was Verstappen at Red Bull, so only the RNG does not get a point. It was Russell at Mercedes, so only the RNG doesn't get a point. And it was Norris at McLaren, so only the RNG gets the point. In P3, it was Leclerc, for which none of us predicted him, and none of us predicted anyone in the top 3 for P3. So none of us we all get 0 points. In P2, it was Antonelli, but none of us predicted him, and only my brother predicted someone in the top 3, that being Russell, so he gets a point. And for P1, it was Russell, for which none of us predicted him. However, I get a point for predicting Charles in the top 3. And that is predictions over, with one last one, which is the one random prediction, which was the attendance, for which the attendance was 483,934. None of us got that right, as we all predicted different numbers. I was in the 470,000s, my brother in the 490,000s, and the RNG in the 430,000s. So, after round 1, I am in the lead with 16 points, ahead of my brother with 15, and the RNG with 14. So there we have it. That's the end of the Australian GP recap. There will be some quick updates for the Chinese GP as well, and probably just those will probably come out after practice, and like this time tomorrow, because I'm going to make the Japanese Grand Prix predictions first, because otherwise they're not going to go up, as I am getting very tired now and was barely having my eyes open through the majority of that because I'm tired. So if you enjoyed, drop a like if you want. You don't have to. You can drop a dislike if you want. I see that as well, and it's fine. I know I need to improve these. That's why I'm not upset with the views and whatever. I'm just doing this because I want to. Bye.